Start. Hi, welcome back to C programming. This is next DTE class, and today afternoon we are going to continue the C programming. Of course, the topic is preprocessor statements. You know that when we develop C programming, lot of things we have to carry out. So during this build process, so development of C program is always called as build process. Initially we know that we require lot of programs, okay, finally to get the exe file. What we do is we use editor. So you can use any editor for that sake to type a program. Of course we use keyboard to type in that, and then we store it in the hard disk or probably the secondary memory. So we can use even MS Word for that sake, or Notepad, or any editor for that matter, which actually allows you to store in terms of a text file. But the extension will not be .txt, but it will be .c program. So when we save, so that is the program. Of course we know already how to write a C program, and then when we type that, so it can be called as a C program. But so to make it run, so we have to compile it. So this is a very common phenomena. As a student we know all those things, that how to type in a program and then save it as .c extension file, and then later use a compiler to compile it. Okay, this is what we do normally, and then after compilation a .obj file will be created. This .obj, when we run that, so that means actually when it is given to the machine or the CPU, so it executes along with the help of the library. But behind the scene, so we simply understand that we need to compile, because CPU cannot understand really this original program, the source code which we write in any high level language like C or Fortran or Pascal, whatever it is. And to understand, the CPU needs it to be converted into machine code. That is what we do as a translation process, which we call as compilation. And when it is in that form, original form, where the native language of the CPU, so then automatically it understands and it executes. So this is what normally the process, the build process. But there are a lot of things which are not common to a normal programmer, but a serious programmer always probably would know what is happening behind the scene. So for example, we know that once we create using editor, then we need to compile. But when we compile, something happens before that. That means before it is passed on to a compiler, that is Turbo C in this case. What I do, there will be always a preprocessor thing happening. What is this preprocessor? The name suggests, for example, if you look at here in this program, so include stdio.h and then include conio.h. Okay. So there are some hash include. Okay, these are the two statements which we normally call it as the preprocessor directive. Hash indicate that it should be preprocessed, and then when we say include, so a file should be included. What is the file? So the file is stdio.h, like that. So there are these are called as preprocessor directives. There are much more than that. For example, you can actually include a macro, and then probably the conditional compilation or file inclusion like this, or sometimes it can be a miscellaneous way of doing it. So these are all the four mechanisms that actually C provides through preprocessor directives. So that means whenever a program is before compiled, it will be given to what is called as preprocessor. Preprocessor actually acts on it. What it does is it actually scans through the entire program. When it scans through that, wherever it it encounters probably the macro, so or probably an inclusion like this. Whenever it finds include file, it is going to include the entire the content of the stdio.h or conio.h etc. So into this source code. That is why the file size grows. Okay. So now if there are any macro substitution like constant, so automatically wherever the symbolic is called as actually symbolic constant, which I actually deal right now. So and that will be replaced by whatever the value we are going to specify. So that means these are the things which actually preprocessor does. Once it does its I mean it finishes its work. So then this will be stored as a .i file. So that means an intermediate file. So this intermediate file is in between the source code, that is .c and .obj, and once the intermediate file is generated, that file is actually passed on to the compiler. Now the compiler actually acts on it, and then it if there are no syntax errors, so then automatically it will create an object file, that .obj file. So if there are any logical errors, you know that CPU will not have its own intelligence, so it will never actually look into those logical error. It is the human mistake, I mean what we make or commit mistakes. So it is we have to take care of such things. So automatically once the .obj is created, then to execute that, now the code is ready for the machine to execute. But there are a lot of functionality, I mean the functions being used in that. So then that should be clearly defined, and what has to be done when a function has to be carried out. So all those things are available in the library. So this library has to be linked. So there is another program called linker which will be acting behind the scene, and this linker actually during the course of execution, that is the run. So when you are running the program, this is what what it does is the linker actually links that, and then it will create a finally the final code, that is what we say application or exe file, whatever we say, or even .com files, etc. This is an executable files. Once this is done, so you do not need any compiler, you do not need any editor. So if the program is pakka, if the program is okay in all terms, so then if it is doing its function, it is giving its value, the intended value, so then that is it. So you can take this program and run anywhere which support that particular operating system. Always the programs that are generated always specific to a particular operating system, what we generally call as platforms. And if you develop a DOS program, it can work probably under DOS or probably under Windows, because Windows DOS is the part of Windows. So that too in Windows 7, Windows 8 you need to have some other program like DOS box or some other support file, so which enables to run these I mean it is a way of backward compatibility. So unless and otherwise it will not run any other form. So it is not independent of the platform. Of course there are programs which are independent of the platform. So the latest languages always allows to do such things. So that means there will be preprocessor, there will be a linker, extra these two programs which will be working behind the scene, and all these are available as commands. We know that alt R, so we will actually, when I go to run menu, you see that run is a command, but basically what is happening behind the scene is linker will actually will be acting on it on obj, and you know that to execute that, so there will be another program called loader which will not figure out anywhere in the IDE. IDE we all know that integrated drive, I mean development environment. So it will not figure, but there will be a loader. So for everything loader is the most important, because it loads the code, the executable code into main memory, and then it sends a signal to CPU to act on it, and CPU will take care of the rest of the things. So it does what is required. This is all what is happening behind the scene. So that means preprocessor is an important stage in the development or the build process of any C program. What I do is I will show you something very interesting related to this. So one of the first preprocessor directive is macro expansion. So for example, if I declare a variable called x, okay, so and then clear the screen, right. So and then what I do is I change the value from 1 to say 10 is equal to less than or equal to 10, and then say x plus plus. So you know that it is a simple loop, so which actually is going to print the value of x, that is 1 to percentage %d and then slash n. So close the quotes and then put x, okay. So this is a very simple program, okay. Everybody knows that how to what is the output of this. So we run this and then we execute this. We know that it is 1 to 10. Sometimes what I want is for example, instead of this particular 10, I can actually say max, okay. So I am actually replacing that 10 by any other value. So, I mean it is a name given to that. So, before I use such things, you can see that I have typed in capital. So, it is very customary or by default. So, always this hash define, always it should be before the start of the very first program, that is nothing but main. So, we use a word called hash define. So, this indicates that it is a preprocessor and we are going to define something. So, what are we going to define? So, we are going to define a constant called max and that value is 10. Okay. So, when we do that, so that means we need to understand that we have to place, so it before the main, okay, normally, but you can place anywhere in the program, that is what we understand. When we place like this can be 10, and what I do is I will recompile and then we run. So, you know that the output is one and the same. So, how does it work? So, what is max and how do it takes 10 and then it incorporates into program. So, who is acting behind the scene? So, you know that when it is given to preprocessor before it is passed on to compiler. So, when preprocessor goes through the entire program, it scans through the entire program and it understands that hash define. So, I mean max is a symbolic constant which has got a value 10. So, it starts searching for max, so anywhere in the program. So, whenever it encounters max, so it simply replaces by 10. So, that means there will be I mean indication substitution for this. So, this is very important. What we understand, so this max and the 10, so the max is called as the template, okay, it is called as macro template and the value are called as expansion, that means 10. Because why we call, there is no expansion, you can say is only substitution. So, later we understand that it can be a statement, it can be a condition, it can be even the entire loop itself. So, that is why we say that expansion. So, what that means the entire loop can be given a name, that can also be a symbolic constant. So, that is why we say max is the template and the value or the expression itself or the condition itself, so can be the macro expansion. So, these are the two terminologies which are very important, and this what is the advantage of this? Think that there is only one loop here and suppose there are 100 loops like this, and everywhere we have to do the same thing, every time we have to check only up to 10. So, then probably if we commit a mistake, we have to scan through a entire program and wherever we want to change. For example, instead of 10 we want to make it 100. Of course, there is a lot of editing features where we can find search and replace with some other value like that, but still it becomes a tedious process. So, to find max and change its value, I mean if it is numerical, if it is symbolically represented, so it becomes very easy to replace. So, just by changing instead of 10 we can say it is 100. So, it is so easy. So, simply compile and then rerun. So, it does its function, then now it is printing 1 to 100. So, it means the symbolic constant becomes very handy and it is a very convenience to change. So, the readability of the program will be very good. So, that is why this macro definition will do a lot I mean help in developing the program. Now, suppose a very common thing is we know that there is no pi defined in C. What is the value of pi? It is not just number, so it can take even floating point number 1415 like this. So, and then suppose what do you do with that? So, we normally what we do is we are going to, we need a radius value. Okay. So, let me develop that program simply. So, enter radius like this and then scanf. So, read that value %d and of course, it should be put into, so the x is the radius. Once we have this, so we need to have some other variable like float, so area. So, we need to calculate area. So, how do you calculate area? Area is equal to, so we know that pi, we can directly put pi is already defined as a symbolic constant. So, multiplied by x and then multiplied by x pi r square. So, then we can easily print the area of the area is so and so, okay, and here it is area. So, it is, you can even constrain it to 2 digits after the decimal point. Okay. Now, compile. So, I enter radius say 10, so it will be 314.15, so it is working fine. So, why it is, I mean, very convenient, because you can see that pi is not defined. In many other languages probably may have, for example, Python may have its own or MATLAB environment will support directly pi. Lot of constants are there which we normally make use in engineering. So, and computation. So, these are all values might have been defined, but in a language like C, when there is no such constants available, automatically we need to make use of this hash define. So, is very convenient in dealing with such thing. So, and suppose you may ask, I can type directly 3.1415, yes, it is good, but if you want to make 100 changes, I mean 100 locations wherever the pi appears, so it becomes very tedious, and instead of typing 3.1415, you may err and you may type something else, it may be 31.415 like that. So, then automatically it becomes I mean tedious to handle such thing. So, that is why, so these macro templates are very handy in nature. Then, so can we do only this much, or can we do something else? So, for example, it is not just constant like integer constant or the floating point constant, etc. Even so, we can actually define the logical operator. So, logical operator we know that this is the logical operator and or, etc. So, suppose if any value lies between so and so, so you can simply say typing ampersand and leaving out 1 ampersand will have a different meaning. So, or typing something else will have a different meaning. So, what we do is here we read a number, so that will be stored into x, and then we find out, so using this what is the value. So, if x is greater than 10, so here I can use and, it becomes handy, x is less than 20, then you can say that x is between 10 and 20. Else outside the limits. So, let me compile this. Okay, there are some errors. Yes, it is okay. Now, I say 12, x is between 10 and 20, it is fine. So, say 22 outside the limits. So, that means, so now we what you have done is you have replaced, so and made convenient for the readability. So, instead of a logical default logical operator symbol over here, so is replaced by simple word called and. So, wherever you want to use this ampersand and ampersand symbol, instead of that you can make use of and. Typing and is very easy, so it will not be tedious. So, that means we can actually replace all the symbolic operators, so by these kind of very common English words. So, it is very funny thing, so about how C handles these things. Next, For example, it can also be an expression. For example, let me define something like alpha, that means any alphabet. So, any alphabet, if it is greater than single quote A, okay, I should have used that, okay, anyway, sorry, and then and, or you can use this, I mean symbol. So, x is less than lower case. What are we defining here? So, whether we are, I mean checking whether x lies between A to Z, the lower case. So, then we can say it is a lower case alphabet. That is what we are actually trying to do. So, then I need to so we can say character. Enter an alphabet. What we do is we simply, so in condition you do not need to type all these things. I am modifying this program for my requirement over here. So, if this is true, you can say lower case letter. Now, I tell lower case letter. Okay. Enter an alphabet, say D, it is a lower case letter, right. Similarly, suppose if I enter capital A, so then it is not a lower case letter. So, that means what I try to, I think the character is not displayed because I am using get ch. So, as soon as I press a key, so on the keyboard, so it reads and then it goes to next statement, that is why you are not able to see. So, hopefully, so you can see I mean if you write a different statement over there to read a character from that. So, you will just look at over here, it is not just a constant, a number constant or probably a character constant. We are actually replacing, I mean we are defining an alpha which is a symbolic constant by an entire expression. So, where x is lying between A to Z. So, this is what we are doing. So, that means it is a wonderful tool, so which we can make use, and the program may I mean look very small. So, if we make use of more number of these kind of preprocessor directives, or sometimes even for example, so here I am actually checking something. Instead of that, what I do is I also define something else. For example, so I want to put a message. What is that message? Say lower case or upper case, like that. Suppose I want to print something, lower case. Okay. So, the entire printf statement, the library function which I am actually calling over here can be passed on to a message which is a symbolic constant. Instead of that, so here itself what I do is instead of using this, so I can make use of simply, so MSG. Of course, it should be normally capital letters, or you can, if you put a semicolon over here, so you do not need to put semicolon over here, as I think. Okay. So, now, so just compile this and then run. So, put H over here, it is a lower case. See what is happening. Instead of a printf statement, you see here, so I am using simply a symbol attached to that. So, this symbol has been defined, so with a printf statement, it is a library function. So, the entire library function we are making use by simply a 3 letter. Even if you are good enough, I mean you can reduce to simply M or C a message, so or something else, whatever you want. So, like that. So, the readability of the program will greatly enhance. Not just by that, for example, you want to calculate, there is no square function. Suppose you want to multiply two numbers and find the square of that. So, then we can read that and then do the same thing. So, just I will show you how to do that and then we move on to some other part of it, right. So, what I do is I would like to define, so capital SQ square, okay, or simply then I type simply one x and then what is. So, there are two part, you know that one is expansion part, the other one is the template part. Template is having x SQ and along with a parameter called x, and this value you see that it is x into x over here. That means, so whenever we make use of this template, what it does is actually it does x into x, that means multiply by itself and then it will return a value. That is what is going to happen. So, enter, here I modify this program, enter x some value and then let me read that from the keyboard. So, once I read that, then I have to calculate something. What is that? So, I have to calculate some answer. So, answer is equal to, you know that SQ and then I have to put this value x over here. But even you need not call x, you can actually use something else. So, it need not be x also. So, because it is like the formal parameters and the actual parameters. So, it will pass on to that. So, when a function receives, it is almost like a function. SQ is a function being defined in terms of constant. So, and once we have this then we say that printf %d squared is x and then comma then answer, right. So, answer must be declared before we make use of that, right. Okay. So, compile, what is the error, execute declaration syntax errors, okay, define hash define, okay, there is no hash, okay, it is a preprocessor, so it is hash define, right. Okay. So, then run, so enter x, say 2, simple. So, squared is 4, 2 squared is 4, similarly run once again, say 25, okay, it is 625, right, squared is 625. So, we see that even we can replace a symbolic constant with help of a function, okay, like we can create functions. And what are the advantages whether we have to use this, that means are we, instead of writing a function, so in C, can we make use of this kind of symbolic constant? Yes, of course. Which one is better if somebody asks? So, then we say that symbolic constant always makes mean better choice between the function and, but you have to see the situation. So, whether you are actually the what kind of the program environment is lying. So, whether to define a constant or make use of function, always this defining the constant is a better choice, because the compiler develops better code, quicker code whenever you make use of this define. So, and becomes very easy readability. Of course, functionality also will enable you to read the program easily. So, that is also a very good technique, but definitely the code will be smaller, the code will be faster. So, that is the greatest advantage of defining a preprocessor directive. We move on to the next topic. For example, you know that file inclusion. So, this file inclusion, you just look at over here. So, these two statements, for example, I will include one more so say mat.h. right, or you can say dot DOS h etc., or even graphics.h etc. So, there are 3 files. Okay. You should only include only if you are making use of some functions which are available in these header files, otherwise never include such kind of header files. For example, I am using mat.h over here. When I do this, instead of finding squaring that number, I want to find out the square root of that. So, then answer must be in floating point value. So, that you have to take care of that. What we do is we define float. Okay. So, float answer. Sorry. So, this should have been D. Right. So, now square root is so and so, right. Okay. Just check it out. Float spelling mistake. Okay, there is a semicolon missing, right. Say 25 square root 25 square root is 5, okay, and then say 36, yes, and then say 2, so 1.4142 like that. So, that means we are getting actually, suppose if you do not include this mat.h, so the answer will go wrong, because it will not have the definition of that how to find out the square root of a given number. So, then these steps will not be known to the compiler, I mean while processing. So, that is why it is very important to know whenever we make use of any function, library function, we have to include that. This is what we say the inclusion, file inclusion. So, hash include, that means it is a preprocessor statement, because it is hash started with hash, and then include indicates that you have to include what kind of file. So, it is mat.h. So, where is this mat.h? Mat.h actually is defined somewhere. So, in the options, if you go to directories, so you can see here d:include. So, this include will have all those .h files, header files, and library files. You can see this is the path defined. That means whenever you use this kind of lesser than and I mean less than and greater than symbol, so within which if any header file is mentioned, so this is by this indicates the path of the file allocated. That means, so in the options it will be known to the environment. So, that means where it has to look for a particular header file. So, it is predefined. Suppose sometimes, so you might have seen that instead of like this, so there may be a double quote like this. So, include mat.h, so by double quote. So, what is the difference? So, the difference is the current directory, the double quote indicates that the current directory, look into the current directory as well as the specified directory in the environment. But if you put only less than and greater than symbol, it will only look into the specified directory, it will never look into the current directory. So, normally this kind of situation occurs only when you have to include probably proprietary header files not included in the C programming environment. If somebody develops, you can also develop, we can also develop any header files. If you know how to develop, we can develop and include. For example, finding out the roots of the quadratic equation. So, then automatically what we can do is, if we have created a header file called root.h, then we can include in a separate directory. So, in the current location, then we can say that double quote and root.h. So, or if it is added to the library by default library, so then automatically we can include instead of double quotes, we can actually so make use of less than and greater than like this. So, this is the meaning of the inclusion. So, file inclusion. So, we have to know that when lesser than and greater than symbol indicate that it is a specified directory, double quotes always indicate the current directory as well as the specified directory. This is very important while you, because the header files may not actually be there. What I do is I will try to, I think we are left with some 10 minutes. So, actually Anyway, so some interesting program I would like to show. What I do is I will define something over here. So, just watch what I do. So, I am going to define say horizontal line. I am going to define a horizontal line. What I do is I will type for loop over here and say I is equal to 0 and then I is less than 79. Probably you understand what is this 0 to 79, that means 80. This is nothing but the 80 column. So, the entire horizontal line, if I draw a horizontal line, it is actually made up of characters. So, these characters there will be how many characters, such characters. So, maybe graphic symbols, maybe a character, I mean alphabet character, etc. So, the lot of every symbol is stored inside that with a ASCII value. So, I am going to make use of that ASCII value. So, I am actually running the loop from 0 to 79, that means 80 columns, this is 80 column, and then every time I move, so I have to upgrade by I plus plus. Okay. So, then I have to do something with for loop. So, then I can directly type, so say the printf here itself. So, I am trying to print this character, the graphic character, say here currently I am using simply 196. 196 is a graphic character. Okay. So, I am terminating over there. So, this is actually I am defining over here. What I do is I define I and say y. So, I need some two variables. So, I delete all these things. So, I use what is called as go to xy. So, it is a function which actually puts the cursor in a specified location, say 0 comma 0. So, that means top left corner, always 0 comma 0 is top left corner, and then what I do is I will simply call this h line. So, I am not doing anything. Okay. So, let me compile this, there is an error. Okay. So, let me, because I do not want this. Yes. You can see here. So, I have drawn something very interesting. I have drawn something very interesting. So, with using a character 196. So, instead of that, what I do is I will make use of some other character 219. Can you see it is a thicker line. So, it has drawn a line. Before I do that, so I can also say text color, say 10. See what happens now, right. So, that means we can actually draw, I think it is not showing color, text color. So, we have to make use of what is called as not displaying color. Suppose if you want to continue with the next line, you can actually do so by putting a slash over there, and you can do like this. That means you can continue with the next line, and if you compile, you can see that it is very interesting. That means you can generate things like this. Instead of that, you can also do something. For example, after generating this, so if I use a for loop, say I is equal to 0 I is less than or equal to say 100 times, and then say I plus plus. So, what I do is I create okay, it has gone to loop. Okay. So, like this actually we can wonderfully make use of this particular include preprocessor directive. So, there are much more than this probably conditional compilation. I mean the miscellaneous compilation can also be done with this. I think you really enjoyed this hash define. Um, uh, and what we do is we continue with this C programming. Next time hopefully we move on to something very interesting called structures and unions in C programming. It is goodbye from Mahadevaya. So, and see you in the next class. Thank you and goodbye.